Did you know that there are actually several forms of vitamin A? Some of those forms that come from food are readily available to be used by the body, and some of those forms of vitamin A that come from other foods need to go through additional processes that the body has to do. Stay tuned for more information and in-depth analysis on vitamin A. Vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin that helps you with your immune function, supports cell growth. In the case of pregnancy, it helps with fetal development, and it's also incredibly important for your eyes and obviously your vision. Now, it is important to note that there are pre-active forms of vitamin A and active forms of vitamin A. The pre-active form or precursor to vitamin A, such as the popular term beta-carotene, which you may have already heard, which is found in high amounts in carrots. It just means that the body actually needs to take on an additional process to convert the beta-carotene to a retinol, which is the active form. However, there is an active form readily available in a range of animal foods, and these are called retinols. Now, this isn't to suggest that the pre-active or the precursor form, such as beta-carotene or a carotenoid in spinach, can't be used by the body. It absolutely can. And in a healthy, functioning individual, the body will take those nutrients, do the conversion process, and end up with the active form of vitamin A. So a word of caution is that if an individual is eating a lot of the pre-active form from vegetables, for instance, and doesn't quite have that state of health that the body needs to be able to easily undertake the conversion process, it just adds more work and adds more of a load to what the body's already got to do. And given we're in very tumultuous times, it may be an idea for the individual to look at the active forms so that they're usable by the body. There's no conversion process that needs to take place. And as mentioned, this largely stems from animal products, which we will go through in a moment. The recommended daily intake, recommended daily allowance, daily value for men in this case is 900 micrograms, and for women it is 700 micrograms. And it is also important to mention that the upper tolerable intake ranges at about 3,000 micrograms per day. As always on the Health Reversion channel, I try to make sure that I deliver things that you can see visually and ways for your brain to say, okay, these are the foods that I can get vitamin A from. That looks like something I can incorporate, or that's a serving size that would suit me. So let's go through a whole range of whole foods, both plant-based and animal-based, that will see you getting your recommended dietary intake for vitamin A. First up, we have beef liver. A 3-ounce serving will yield 6,582 micrograms, which is 730% of the daily intake. A cup of cooked carrots will yield you 1,300 micrograms, or 150% of the RDI. And just a special mention there that is the pre-active form. So that 150% is based on the body completely converting and doing that conversion process. Next up is tuna. 6 ounces or 170 grams will yield you 1,287 micrograms, or 143% of the RDI. Next up is butternut squash. 1 cup or 205 grams will yield 1,144 micrograms, or 127%. Sweet potato, baked, 114 grams will yield 1,096 micrograms, or 122% of the RDI. A cooked cup of spinach, so 180 grams, yields 943 micrograms, or 105%. So special mention there, you're looking at, with 1 cup of either spinach, kale or mustard greens, you're looking at just over 100% of your recommended dietary intake. We've got cantaloupe or rock melon next, 1 cup, 177 grams will yield 300 micrograms, or a third of your RDI. And butter, so 1 tablespoon or 14 grams will yield 100 micrograms, or 11% of the RDI. In relation to toxicity, as mentioned before, vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, so any excess that you are not using, the body, rather than excreting it, will attempt to store it in the liver and also in your fat stores, and that way it can use it at a later date. However, if you are having a lot of synthetic, so supplement-formed synthetic vitamin A, you could run the risk of having toxicity, a risk of bone loss, hip fractures, and even some issues around fetal development. So if you believe you've got a vitamin A deficiency, look into those whole food sources as opposed to the synthetic vitamins that are available at the local pharmacy or health food shop. One final reason there on toxicity to avoid having such high levels is because it can interfere with the really beneficial effects of vitamin D. So keep a lookout for my upcoming video on vitamin D, where I'll explain more about the role of that nutrient. Some common signs of toxicity include jaundice, a loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, irritability, and even hair loss. In relation to deficiency, if an individual does have some existing conditions with relation to their liver or gallbladder, basically their ability to assimilate fats, then this can interfere with the absorption of vitamin A. And that may mean that the individual might have to have higher amounts, or it may mean that the individual may need to supplement. The gallbladder is of particular importance here because it releases that bile that helps to break down the fats. And a lot of the time the vitamins and the nutrients are contained within the fats. So if the body's having difficulty actually breaking down those fats and allowing the vitamins to be released and then used by the body, that's the issue there. So what can happen? What are some signs of deficiency? We're looking at dry eyes, dry skin, a difficulty seeing at night, acne on the face and body, and increased susceptibility to getting regular infections. So if you're getting the flu or a cold regularly, like every 2 months or 3 months, it could be a vitamin A deficiency. And finally, in relation to cooking, with the fat-soluble vitamins, they are insulated a little bit more than the water-soluble vitamins. So they're not going to leak out when you're steaming them as much. They're not going to be affected by heat initially as much. But we don't want to be looking at prolonged periods of heat or cooking with really, really high levels of heat. So for example, if you're using the tuna or the liver and you're really frying it up and making sure it's char grilled, that can significantly reduce the amount of vitamin A that is finally available to you. So it's not to say that we don't want to not cook, because cooking a lot of the time is really advantageous in terms of digestion and helping to break down a lot of the hard cellulose walls around the cells in plant foods, for instance. And so it can be beneficial to actually open up bioavailability to the vitamins such as vitamin A. So really, in summary, we just want to avoid prolonged 10, 11, 12 hour slow cooker sort of situations, or putting the liver or putting the tuna on a really, really hot saucepan or barbecue where it's going to get really char grilled and fried. That's going to do us for today. If you've got anything that you can contribute, any experience you've got with the vitamins, any knowledge that you can share, that would be really wonderful to hear from you. Please leave a comment down below. In the meantime, I ask that you keep well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.